Day 2. Look at this fancy man here. 2 prosecutors coming up.
We got 2 prosecutors right here.
2 prosecutors right here. I'm a little less formal today. So we're rushing right now to go and pick up Arnaud's badge. The badge office closes at 6, and it's currently 5:40. We made it. There's no line. Arnaud, how are you feeling?
I'm about to get my lottery ticket, and for some reason I know I'm gonna win.
Let's see that badge.
Yellow.
Yellow press.
The best color. Hello and welcome back to the Cannes Canon. It is still at the beginning of the festival, but we have seen a few films in competition. The very first film to open up the competition was Mascha Schilinski's Sound of Falling.
Jetzt.
And going into the festival, we had heard a lot of really good things. I mean, this is an unknown director out of nowhere being plucked and right into the competition. What did we glean from Sound of Falling? What is Sound of Falling?
Sound of Falling is a bit of an enigma. The immediate reaction that I had watching it was, this feels like Andrei Tarkovsky, Bela Tarr, in some ways, some bits of Ingmar Bergman in there. It's a really hard film to parse. I felt deeply confused through most of it. I don't know what exactly to make of it, or its themes. Really complex. I don't really even know if I could begin to dissect what the narrative is. And yet, despite the fact that narratively I was pretty lost and I can't necessarily make heads or tails of what exactly it's trying to say thematically, I just thought this was such a rich film. And just like how, I mentioned Tarkovsky, The Mirror is a film that I've seen 3 or 4 times now, and every time I watch it, I find something different in it. And it's a film that I can't even begin to really say, I get it, I understand, I know what this is. But it hits me personally in a different way every time. And Sound of Falling gave me the same feelings that I got watching The Mirror.
You mentioned Tarkovsky. Some people have been throwing the name Terrence Malick, Carlos Reygadas, who's on the jury this year. All of these names are not at all what I would have expected seeing Dark Blue Girl.
No.
It is crazy to me that this is the same filmmaker. I mean, I realize that there's a major time gap between the 2 films, Dark Blue Girl having been released in 2017, but other than a few thematic interests, this feels like a completely different filmmaker. We were mentioning in the last episode, is this something where we're gonna look back on Dark Blue Girl, being able to glean a few things like, oh, I see how this led to this, or is this gonna feel like a filmmaker who is trying to reinvent herself? And I think it's much more so the latter. She is operating on a much more abstract, non-linear, and poetic wavelength. I feel like Dark Blue Girl is like a Marvel movie compared to this. It's crazy how far she went. Even an art house audience is gonna have trouble with this, I think.
This is not a really approachable film, but it is one that is aesthetically gorgeous. And so
Absolutely.
I think even the people who really struggle with parts of it are still going to admire it on that aesthetic level. But to link it back to Dark Blue Girl, I saw much more of Dark Blue Girl in this. I had mentioned, oh, I really like her natural draw to nature. I really like the way that she'll step away from narrative for a few moments just to film the dunes. There's this almost linking of this Freudian idea of the story in Dark Blue Girl to the nature around them. I see that here as well. But we should dive into the aesthetics of this a little bit because
it's, well, for me at least, it's the only thing I feel apt talking about. It's a film that I could see the talent and the ideas on screen, and I didn't really feel anything. So I guess what I can talk about is the aesthetics.
The cinematography. I don't know how anyone could watch this and not come away thinking this is one of the best shot films of the year. Every single shot just feels so carefully composed, even when it's a little bit more free-flowing. I think of that shot, the girl on the swing.
Right.
And we're rocking with her. Very often in this movie, we, as the camera, begin to look through the eyes of the characters. And it's almost like we're looking through the eyes of a phantom watching on.
There are a lot of scenes that are shot memorably. There's a lot of scenes that don't assume that you have to have things be in focus. And then you have scenes that jump through time and in the single take. But again, this is what I mean. It's a film that's like, you can appreciate it, or at least for me, I can appreciate what it's doing. And I think the images are incredible, and I don't know what to make of it. You know, I don't know what any of this really, and it just feels like a bunch of really beautiful things on screen. And by the end, I'm left not feeling much.
I felt similarly confused by the film as you, but I definitely spent most of the runtime feeling a collection of different themes striking me. And it's not like I at any point went, oh, that's it, that's what the movie's about. Although I felt all of these themes throughout, it's not like one of them resonated as that's what the movie is. And that's why I felt that this was so rich. And it's why I spent the entire runtime thinking, I am so confused, I can't wait to watch this again. Like, if I had the opportunity to, I would have hit play again on the film as soon as it ended. It's the type of film that I think I will be able to rewatch over and over and over, and every single time I watch it, I'm going to take something new away from it. Because I feel like it's layered, it's rich, and it's thematically complex and dense in a way that very few films aspire to be these days.
This is a film that I feel like I cannot properly talk about until I see again. I know how I feel in front of it for now. It's just that my feelings are not set in stone.
Yeah.
You know?
Right now, what we have is an impression.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's a really positive thing that even though you're feeling mixed and feeling conflicted by the film, that it's drawing you to like rewatch it soon. It's not one of those, I don't really know how I feel, but like, I don't really care to see it another time.
I don't necessarily like yearn to rewatch it, but I would want to see what I can get out of it on a second watch.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to be back here in this very special cinema, surrounded by amazing filmmakers, and I'm sure amazing filmmakers. And we're going to run more of a democracy than the presidents, and we're really excited to get going.
Okay, thank you.
So we both saw Sergei Loznitsa's two Prosecutors. I was lucky enough to get a ticket at the world premiere in the Grand Théâtre Lumière with the bow tie. It's really special to see the world premiere of a Cannes competition film and to see, you know, everybody standing up when the directors and the actors come into the room. I'm glad to say this is a film that I wound up really, really enjoying. And I'm happy to have seen what I think is a quality film within that environment.
My main takeaway being, who was the fucking psychopath that scheduled this movie at 10:30 p.m. Just to break down the story here, set during the Stalinist purges, we follow a young prosecutor with some idealist tendencies who, after meeting with a man who's been imprisoned during the purges, he begins to feel as though the regime is treating people unfairly, and concerned by this, he takes his complaints all the way up to the top. And the film, kind of like A Gentle Creature, which we earlier profiled, becomes a bit of a Kafkaesque nightmare of bureaucratic evils.
The key difference here is that this is more so about the police state. This isn't necessarily a victim, an arbitrary victim of a bureaucratic system. This is a film that feels pretty small scale. It's 2 hours long. The first half of the film is mostly just this prosecutor coming into the prison, having a request to see a prisoner who he heard needed a prosecutor. It takes about 30 minutes for him to get to the jail, wait until he can talk to the right person who will then be able to talk to the right person. All of this system is kind of put in place because they want to avoid having him see this prisoner in the first place. This prisoner is able to essentially reveal the evils that he was dealt with. Once you know this information, you are an enemy of the state. Our main character, Kornev, has these very, idealistic tendencies and sees, the Soviet communist regime for what it could be and not, unfortunately, what it really is. Once he is told by this prisoner that just by seeing him, he is going to be a target, you see everything else in a different light as a viewer as well. Every shot is composed in a way where he feels completely surrounded. You see a lot of people kind of giving him looks and you wonder if those people are, KGB or if it's just kind of paranoia. This is the kind of mise en scène that's being put forward here. It's this very, for Loznitsa, we've talked about how he's so versatile. He does narrative, documentary, archive. This is kind of a break in his filmography in that this is the most straightforward narrative film he has ever done. And that's because it's the first time that he is directly adapting, not a loose adaptation, just directly adapting I think a short story from Russian author Georgy Demidov. I think you feel this way as well. This is a story that, isn't necessarily like an epiphany for us. This isn't like new information. Like we know how a police state works. We know that
from the second the story begins, you know how it's going to end.
But I think the execution of the story is, I think, brilliant.
I wish that I could be as enthusiastic as you are about the film. It felt a little too inevitable to me, where everything was mapped out far before it happened, and that's kind of the purpose of the film. That's kind of the point.
It's like an aura,
it is
that's what, there are films where you love to be surprised, and we'll talk about one I think shortly. But there are films where you know what's going to happen, and this inevitability is just not a detriment because that is kind of what the film is supposed to be.
See, I think that this is a film that absolutely perfectly accomplishes its goals, which are depicting mundanity, depicting the banality, depicting the overall violence of the pen. Because at first you have this prosecutor who very clearly feels like this cannot be policy. I know policy is good, and this can't be policy. This has to be the low-level guys who are abusing their power, and if I go up to the top and talk to the guy who's in charge of all of this, he's going to see that people are abusing their power and he's going to do something about it. It's not about the individuals who are making these choices or deciding to enact violence upon the prisoners. It is about the people at the top making the policies who are murdering with their pen. And I do think this film perfectly does what it's trying to do. Did I find it the most compelling or engaging film on a personal level? No. But I can't fault the movie, because it does do what it's trying to do to the absolute utmost. It's just, it takes some patience to get through.
Maybe you're not as receptive to Loznitsa's work as I am. I've heard people say that the film is slow, that the film takes its sweet time, but that's the point of the film. I find a lot of engagement in the way that he kind of depicts how long these processes have to take. Once he's finally given the chance to see the prisoner, it still takes like a good maybe 3 minutes just to get to him, because there's so many hallways, passageways, doors. I understand that some people might be frustrated by that, but that is what the film should be.
And I feel like you are more receptive to this type of film in general. I can't fault it. If this is the type of film that you like, it's going to be perfect for you. To me, I was just a little bit at a distance from it.
So that's it for this episode of the Cannes Canon. Thank you so much for watching. Tomorrow's episode, we talk about directors Oliver Lasche and Richard Linklater. So stay tuned.